The rain tapped softly against the hospital window, streaking long silver lines across the glass. Inside, a little girl sat in silence, her hands folded neatly in her lap as if she had given up on the idea of movement altogether. Her legs hung lifeless from the edge of her wheelchair, pale and still. She was only 10 years old, but her eyes carried the exhaustion of someone who had lived too much pain. Emily was her name, the only daughter of one of the city's most powerful CEOs. People said her father could move mountains with money, buy anything his heart desired. But there was one thing all his power and fortune could not fix: the hopelessness etched into his daughter's small, fragile face. The accident that had paralyzed her had not only broken her body but also her spirit. Doctors said there was a chance for recovery with relentless therapy, but Emily had stopped believing. To her, the world had turned into a place meant for others, for children who could run, climb, laugh without effort. She had stopped smiling, stopped trying, stopped dreaming. That was when he entered her life. Daniel was nothing like the men in crisp suits who filled the CEO's office. He was an ordinary man with calloused hands and tired eyes, a single father doing his best to raise his little daughter, Lily, after losing his wife to illness. When the CEO hired him as a caretaker, he didn't expect miracles. He just needed someone who wouldn't give up, someone who would sit with Emily when he couldn't. "If you can get her to smile," the CEO had whispered one day, his voice trembling despite his usual power, "I'll consider that more valuable than any fortune I own." But Daniel hadn't come for the salary. He had come because he knew what it was like to watch someone you love fade away. He knew the weight of despair. And he wasn't about to let this little girl drown in it. The first days were the hardest. Emily barely looked at him. She kept her head turned toward the window, away from his voice, away from his presence. When he tried to read to her, she pulled the blanket over her head. When he asked her questions, she gave one-word answers. But Daniel was patient. He didn't force her. Instead, he began to bring Lily along. Lily was 7, with a laugh that could fill a room. She didn't know about the rules of sadness or the walls people built around themselves. All she knew was honesty and joy. The first day she came, she dropped to the floor with crayons and began to draw. Emily pretended not to watch, but her eyes betrayed her. Lily's paper soon held a picture: a sun, a house, and 3 people holding hands. "That's me, that's Daddy, and that's you," Lily said, pointing at Emily with a proud grin. For the first time in months, Emily's lips curved into something resembling a smile. It was small, fragile, but it was real. From that day, things began to shift. Emily started listening when Lily told her silly stories. She giggled when Daniel burned toast in the hospital kitchen and pretended it was gourmet food. She picked up crayons herself and drew shaky little rainbows. And at night, when Daniel read fairy tales aloud, she sometimes whispered, "Just one more chapter." But when it came to her legs, the light inside her dimmed again. Therapy sessions were a battlefield she refused to enter. Every attempt to move ended in tears, in cries of pain, in a desperate plea: "I can't do it. I'll never walk again. I'm broken." Daniel would kneel down, gently lifting her chin so she'd look at him. "Emily," he whispered one evening, his voice steady and calm, "you are not broken. You are strong. And I promise you, I'll help you. Not because the world expects it. Not because your father hopes for it. But because you deserve to feel alive again." It was not medicine, not science, but those words planted something in her heart, a seed of belief. From then on, Daniel changed everything. He didn't treat therapy like therapy. He turned it into life. When Lily chased butterflies in the garden, Daniel encouraged Emily to reach her arms out, stretch, and try. When music filled the house, he gently lifted her from the chair and swayed with her, letting her feel the rhythm through her body. He made her exercises into games, her small victories into celebrations. Each time she cried, he was there, whispering, "One more try. Just one." Her father watched quietly, often from the shadows of doorways. This man who could command boardrooms, sign billion-dollar deals, and crush competitors with a single decision now stood powerless, humbled by what was happening in his own home. He realized money couldn't buy what Daniel gave his daughter: love, patience, and belief. The breakthrough came one quiet evening. Lily had dropped her toy a few feet away, and instinctively, Emily leaned forward. Her hands trembled as she gripped the edge of her chair. Daniel froze, watching. And then, she pushed herself up. Her knees wobbled, her body shook, but she took a step. One. Then another. It wasn't far, but it was enough. Lily screamed with joy, clapping her hands. Daniel's eyes filled with tears as he whispered, almost to himself, "You did it, you really did it." Emily stumbled into his arms, sobbing into his chest. For the first time, she wasn't crying from pain or hopelessness. She was crying because she had proven to herself that she could stand again. Her father rushed in, falling to his knees beside her. "Emily," he said, his voice breaking. But she wasn't looking at him. Her gaze was locked on Daniel, who smiled through tears and whispered once more, "See? I told you, you were never broken." From that moment on, Emily's journey was far from over, but it was no longer fueled by despair. She kept fighting, step by step, with Daniel and Lily by her side. And her father, once consumed by wealth and power, learned that sometimes the most valuable gift isn't bought, it's given from the heart. In the end, Emily's story wasn't about a CEO's power or a doctor's knowledge. It was about a single dad who carried scars of his own but still chose to heal others. A man who whispered hope into the heart of a girl who had lost everything. And because of him, Emily didn't just learn to walk again. She learned to live. And the message that lingered long after: sometimes, the greatest healers are not the ones with titles, money, or degrees, but the ones who have known pain and still choose to love anyway. Because sometimes, a single whisper is enough to change a life forever.